There is nothing more frightening than when power falls into the hands of an insecure, psychologically traumatized, and deeply self-conscious person. Unfortunately, the largest country on the planet is ruled by a puny little creep. And we're not talking about height here, but about the size of Putin's personality. History is full of short-statured figures. Napoleon, for example, wasn't exactly a top model even by the standards of his time, but the scale of his personality overshadowed an entire era. But what can we say about Putin? A pathetic parody of a dictator who wanted to become a global hegemon, but despite having unlimited resources, managed to squander everything and then some.
The special military operation is going according to plan.
What the hell are you even talking about?
Putin's main problem is that he's mortally embarrassed by his own body. And first and foremost, his height. The pale little Putin has the classic old-fashioned Napoleon complex. That's why he fantasizes about seizing huge chunks of other people's land, about giant missiles, and dreams of returning to the G8.
This is truly a unique product, something no one else in the world has. Moreover, I distinctly and vividly remember very well the moment when we officially announced to the public that we were developing such a highly advanced and powerful weapon. Even top-level, highly experienced specialists and experts told me that yes, the goal is good, noble, and truly worthy, but in the foreseeable historical future, it's unattainable.
Write proper text, you're writing some nonsense.
To be fair, such a comparison is insulting to Napoleon. Bonaparte was loved and respected even by his enemies, while Putin is a parody of a leader. His little foot fidgeting at memorial services is a comedy genre of its own.
For example, at the end of the meeting between Putin and Trump, when the fake Putin was standing there twitching his legs, you could guess that he had some kind of device that started at his foot and ended on the floor. And this device is about 15 to 20 centimeters long.
It's not for nothing that Putin is also called the dwarf on stilts or the lady in high heels. In the Kremlin, crowds of scientists and engineers work around the clock to make the Führer at least a little bit taller. Russia doesn't have its own electronics, doesn't have decent cars, but it does have nano heels, which truly have no analogues in the world. What's tragic for little Putin is that what makes people laugh isn't his short stature, but his ridiculous attempts to hide it. It even gets to the point of absurdity. To avoid being exposed, Putin wears special shoes. More precisely, they're not really shoes, it's just one big heel.
A number of users online have noticed the Kremlin leader's footwear. In the published footage, it's clearly visible that Putin's shoes have hidden heels inside. The area around the heels is especially noticeable. This isn't the first time Putin has worn heeled shoes. Earlier footage from a press conference was shared online. In the photos and videos, the dictator appeared in oddly shaped shoes. As the Telegram channel Crimean Wind wrote at the time,
those legendary elevator shoes were spotted, the ones that add 10 centimeters to Putin's height. As we can see, in such boots, Putin's legs take on very unnatural positions. Just looking at them would make even an experienced orthopedist go on a week-long bender. With his heels, Putin is practically shouting to the whole world about his insecurity and complexes. Apparently, his peers in the St. Petersburg courtyards used to mock him quite a bit. Maybe they found it funny that little Pinya was no taller than the average curb.
50 years ago, back in the days of my youth, the streets of Leningrad taught me one very important rule that I have never forgotten. If a fight is truly inevitable, you absolutely have to be the one to strike first. Are you already
Filming? A lot of people ask. How do you properly rip out an Adam's apple? In the
struggle for extra centimeters, any means are good for the dictator. Even cloning. Many have noticed that at some events Putin looks much taller than usual. Immediately a theory appeared that this was his taller double. This was especially noticeable at Putin's meeting with Trump. Donald is 190 centimeters tall, while the moth barely reaches 169. But visually, the 20-centimeter difference was not noticeable.
Trump is significantly taller than the original Putin. In this case, when they were walking, especially along that red carpet, The height difference wasn't so significant. Of course, I know that the vampire's footwear industry works very well, and those stilts they make for him. Still, this double is not much shorter than Trump.
So either it's some new kind of telescopic heel, or they've pulled a double out of the closet. Codenamed Kalancha. There's a theory that when Kalancha isn't being used, they're stretching him on the rack in the Kremlin basement. Perhaps that's exactly where Putin got the phrase rubber butt from.
It's not just, simply a rubber butt, you know.
Meetings with Trump are especially painful for the Führer. It's hard to pontificate about a bipolar world when you're staring up your opponent's nostrils. Trump himself, with all his proletarian straightforwardness, openly mocks Putin's height. This was publicly revealed by the U.S. Secretary of Health Kennedy.
One of the funniest moments was when President Trump brought a full-length photo of himself with Putin when they were in Hawaii. He's very tall and Putin is very short. He said, "You know what I told him?" I said, "I missed you here."
I can only imagine how many heels were broken in the Kremlin after watching that video. And so Putin's wounded ego shrank to the size of Medvedev's brain. By the way, why do you think Medvedev was chosen as Putin's successor? Because half-leader Dimka is even shorter than Putin, which means the dictator doesn't see him as a threat. Medvedev is the perfect lackey for Putin. Next to him, the pale old man imagines himself as Peter the Great. Perhaps it's because of his own insecurities that Putin likes to spend so much time with other people's children. They're all smaller than he is, and we sincerely hope that's the only reason, and not because, besides being a war criminal, Putin is also a sexual maniac.
Little, sweet, gentle, precious, innocent children.
And here's another argument in favor of the stiletto princess's low self-esteem. Notice that Putin always meets with his subordinates at a great distance. It's all because from a distance they seem smaller, and that makes Putin feel more at ease. At least in this case, he can do without heels and dangle his relaxed legs under the table.
You stuck it in the wrong slot, kid.
For all dictators, as for mentally unstable individuals, size always matters. Recently, geneticists studying Hitler's DNA determined that the German Führer had Kallmann syndrome, meaning a micropenis. The theory is supported by Hitler's low testosterone levels, congenital lack of sense of smell, and his focus on politics. All against the backdrop of having no personal life or family. And you have to admit, that explains a lot. A dictator's small penis equals a big war for the world.
That's a bold statement.
Of course, we weren't able to get a comment from Kabeva about Putin's penis size, but considering that, like Hitler, he started a major war in Europe, there are some daring assumptions.
Oh, honestly, having a small penis is basically a sentence. How do you live with a small penis? That's pretty frank.
History is cyclical, and a micro-personality is bound to be punished. But what surprises me is something else. Why does the Russian population ignore such obvious things? They support an unbalanced psychopath who sends them to die by the hundreds of thousands just to boost his own low self-esteem. There's only one explanation for this. Most Russians have the same inferiority complex. They want to appear greater than they really are. And because of their actual lack of greatness, they are embittered and cruel.
The dam must be destroyed, the Kiev dam must be destroyed, the city must be flooded, Kharkiv must be wiped out, Mykolaiv, Odessa, Sumy erased from the face of the earth, just like Dnipro and other cities.
If Koshay's death is in an egg, then Putin's death is in a sock. And until Russians tear off this sock, they will not have a normal life.
I would like to remind you that this video is created for entertainment purposes and contains elements of satire and irony. All facts and events are presented in a hyperbolized or exaggerated form to convey a comedic or dramatic effect. Our goal is not to mislead, but to highlight humor. Please take it with a smile.